All right, guys, quick update heading into Monday because oil might become the biggest story in the market this week. We've got escalating tensions in the Middle East, crude pushing higher, and a few energy names that look ready to move. So let's go through the macro first, and then I'll show you what's on the charts. Right now, the big driver is obviously oil. Anytime the Middle East situation heats up, markets immediately start pricing in supply disruption. So the Strait of Hormuz alone handles about 25% of global crude supply. So even the threat of instability there can push oil higher, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So from a trader perspective, this is pretty simple. If geopolitical tensions go up, oil volatility goes up, and right now USO is sitting around $112 as of Sunday, and technically speaking, the next level I'm watching on the chart is about $129. Now, if crude does continue pushing higher this week, that level becomes very realistic. Another development that did catch my attention was the U.S. emergency weapons package to Israel. Now, the State Department approved roughly about 151 million worth of bomb bodies and the military support equipment. So that's around 12,000 Blue 110 bomb bodies that were included in that package. And now, what's interesting in this deal was that was approved. It was approved using an emergency provision, which means it bypassed normal congressional review, so it could move quicker. Now, that tells you that the US is preparing for continued escalation, not quick de escalation. And historically, when conflicts stretch out like that, energy markets stay volatile for a while. Now, there's also something interesting circulating online from a complaint published by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. It included an email allegedly written by a US NCO describing a combat readiness briefing tied to Iran operations where that conflict was framed as part of God's plan, the God's greater divine plan, and even referenced Armageddon. Now, to be clear, that report is unverified and based on anonymous sourcing, so take it with caution. But it does show how conflicts sometimes become framed in ideological or existential terms, which historically can signal longer conflicts, and longer conflicts usually mean more oil volatility. So, with that backdrop in mind, let's get into the stocks. First one is TMDE. I actually alerted this Friday after hours around $3. If you look at the 15-minute chart, the stock is holding pretty clean base around 280 support. And the big level I'm watching is $4.03. Now, if that breaks with a volume, the next levels on the chart are roughly about $4.80 and $5.20. So potentially we could even see six plus on this one, to be honest. So this one could move quickly if energy momentum continues. Next, what we have is TPET. Now, this one has a very volatile chart, but the setup is pretty interesting. On the intraday, the key level is 225, and that's what I mentioned Friday in Discord. If we see that clean break above that tomorrow, the next resistance zone opens toward roughly about $3.25, and potentially even four plus. So again, another oil related name that could run if crude keeps pushing higher. Let's take a look at USEG next. Now, what I like about this one is that even though it did have a quick move recently, it hasn't really caught the bigger oil momentum yet, which means it could still, become a catch-up trade. Right now, it's sitting right in a support zone around $1.10 and 120. Now, if buyers do step in, the levels that I'm watching are 148 and then 175 plus. Last one I want to quickly take a look at is PRZO. Now, this one's interesting because it's actually an Israeli drone company, so it connects directly to the geopolitical theme. Technically, the chart looks very clean. It's basically been consolidating under a descending trend line, which means the stock is coiling for a move. The key breakout I'm watching is $1.40. If that breaks with volume, the chart opens up, and I think three plus becomes possible. So uh, that's kind of what I'm looking at heading into Monday. Let's see what crude does when a market opens and whether energy names start catching up like we're talking about here. It should be a pretty interesting week, in my opinion. And good luck. Good luck, everyone, and see you on Monday.